So I think you see a lot of outrage handled in different ways right now. So.
Thank you very much. And next, Deirdre.
Well, I had to be next. Hi, I'm Deidre Black. I'm a local entertainer in Atlanta, as well as a trans activist in Atlanta. Pros and cons. I feel the same way. I think a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are frustrated from the injustices that we've seen across the country. I think that I think people are kind of like mixing the two together, like the people that are looting and the people that is being destructive from the people that is protesting peacefully. I think there will be a separation soon where you'll be able to see which is which, and that people will utilize the opportunity for change in America.
Thank you very much. Isra, you are next on the line.
Hi, good evening. My name is Isra Times Iman. I'm a 20-year veteran of the business side of pageantry, also a community activist. So when I take on the topic of the mental state of people of color, I think you have to take into consideration that the climate is filled with microaggressions, physical assault, hate crimes, nonverbal instances of racism. So that can only leave people of color feeling a sense of exhaustion, fear, anger, paranoia, and I think void of some real leadership as it pertains to the way to navigate through these things. I think the pros, as was stated earlier, is probably going to be that the attention is brought to those who would probably normally just ignore it and think it's going to get better without putting any real work to it. I think the biggest con is that people will take advantage of opportunities and do things other than what's really needed for their own agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Neaundre?
I'm Neaundre Bonet. I'm a Black man in America. That's all I really care about being right now. This isn't about me. I feel that people of color are really emotionally lost at this time. I think a lot of our people are not really sure of what to feel right now. But for those who are clear on their feelings, they're either sad, scared, or angry. And for each one of those, it's probably pros and cons. A con for being sad is that the people sometimes shut down instead of taking action when they're sad. For scared is people who are fearful, they're likely to be convinced that there's nothing that they can do. They're so scared. And for angry, I think it's people who are angry will not think clearly and they'll do regrettable things that won't solve problems. The pros for being sad is that some people, when they're sad, are emotionally reactive, and that may cause them to get involved. The pro for being scared is that when people are scared, they feel a desperate need to get involved. And the pro for being angry is that anger, when it's used properly, can channel passion into effective work that can cause some changes. Ultimately, I think that all of these people are mentally exhausted from the oppression, both past and present.
Thank you. Nikki?
Hi, I'm Nikki Simone. I'm an entertainer here in Atlanta. I do feel like the people of color are stressed, they're depressed, they're angry, they're upset, frustrated. They're all those things and all those emotions, and some of them are feeling all those at one time. I think with the con of that is that you find people who would channel their anger in a very violent way, which is not necessarily the answer to solve the solution that we're trying to get solved. The pros of these feelings and things that they do have is that maybe they can channel it and find some way to come together and stand all as one and try to make change and get it done the right way and the most effective way, not a temporary way.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Deshaun?
Hi, my name is Deshaun Ware. I am just here to support all of my brothers and sisters that are on this panel. State of mind of African Americans in this current climate is obviously an innate sense of trauma. and a reoccurring trauma. It's something that we have continuously been fighting, battling, and dealing with, not only in our personal lives, but in our professional communities or our professional jobs, as well as, you know, just being out there in the streets. The pros of it, no, let's start with cons. Cons, unfortunately, where I think is we lose sight and then we allow others to capitalize on our pain. We continue to see destruction in communities, places that we shop at, we eat at. And what that happens is, and what I don't think that we realize as a people is, we're the last already, so we're going to be the last to get fixed. So we can go tear up Buckhead, and that's a community in Atlanta for the affluent. They're going to fix those places first, and then we're going to get the last of the scraps to be fixed. One of the pros is, hopefully we can get together and we can actually organize and mobilize and come up with a plan of action in order to mitigate some of this trauma that we're still experiencing.
Thank you very much. Antoinette?
Well, I'm Antoinette Roberts. I think, the only drag queen on the panel, and I'm Rashad Williams also. So again, like Neaundre said, piggybacking on that, I'm a Black man in America, but I think my thoughts on the mental state around the country for African Americans is, just in my own community, Tampa had a bad incident these past 3 days. It's just been fires on top of fires. So I think people are worried, they're frustrated, and they're hurt. And it's being illustrated through the violence and the destruction of property and all of that going on. And I think people are trying to have peaceful protests, but the problem I see with the worry and the frustration and the hurt is that you have peaceful protests that are being drowned out by the violent destruction and all of that going on. So the pros is, well, I'm sorry, and this is also, I think we're only talking about the Black part, and I'm not going to change what the topic is, but what is making people get even more frustrated is the fact that the economic climate right now for many makes me want to now act out. So all I needed was something to make me want to take off. So this was the final straw for a lot of people, because I've been without work. I don't have money. So I think that added to. The pros are, I think we get to be heard. And I do feel like there will be a positive change that will take effect after this nationwide, because this wasn't just an isolated situation. This happened everywhere. The cons are, aside from the property damage, many vandals are ruining the message. And I think a lot of even the peaceful protests and the ones that are violent are being infiltrated by individuals that just want to see and make us out to be just what we were called, animals and people that tear it up. They're helping, even though they're really not for the message. If I can go out there and destroy even more property to make it seem like Black people are that much worse, it's going to look bad on them, and it does me good because I don't like them anyway.
Okay.
So that's what I see.
Thank you. And Wendell?
I wasn't here when you posed the question. I'm sorry.
Okay. So if you can introduce yourself, and then the opening statement question is, what are your thoughts on the mental state of people of color around the country, and what are the pros and cons of it in this current climate?
Okay. Well, my name is Wendell King. As far as the mental state, I think that people are just simply frustrated. And I think they're frustrated on both sides. People who understand what's going on and people who don't necessarily understand what's going on. It's still frustration on both sides. And I think that in frustration, it encompasses anger, sadness, all types of things are bungled up in the emotional state of anybody that's frustrated, because you're confused, you don't understand why. You're with Fanny, where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, so you have all these things going on. So I think frustration is where it all lies. As far as the pros and the cons, I'll start off with the pros because I think that's the most important. The pros is we are watching an uprising. And this is the first uprising since 1993 with Rodney King, that we actually nationally and internationally came together to fight for the greater good. So I think that is important because history tells us that after an uprising, the government has no choice but to pay attention to the issue. So I think that that is the number one pros, is that we are within an uprising. I think another pros is that young adults are able to finally feel as though they have a voice. And I think that is important because they are often left out of the conversation. Now, the cons is kind of a catch-22, right? Because one of the cons is obviously the vandalism, and the innocent bodies that are being killed still, and the businesses that are being forced to close still. Those are obviously cons, but anybody who really has studied war and revolutions and rebellions understands that there will always be casualties of war. Had it not been for those bodies, had it not been for those businesses, had it not been for the cars burning, we would not get the attention that we need on the subject. So today I was looking at Paris, and they had a huge explosive rally that was the size pretty much of Houston's rally today, fighting for Black bodies in America. That would not have happened had it been a silent protest, as people like to say. You know, I often remind people that Kaepernick knelt for the rest of the season, and it got him nothing. He lost his entire career. He followed the rules to the T, and he was called by the president a sorry MF. So, you know, you have to understand it's a catch-22. So I think the pros and the cons are just right there in the middle.
Okay, thank you very much. And Corey?
Hey, how are you? I am Corey Iman, and in the community, I am currently Westland Grand Emperor. But tonight, I would solely like to speak to you as Philip Lewis, because I think that we have tried so hard to entangle into what's actually happening now too many other things instead of just concentrating on the fact that I am a Black man. I think that the mental state of the community right now is one of frustration, but it is also one of being unified. And in saying that, you have to understand that unity in this instance is that all of us are coming together for one particular cause. But the problem that I'm seeing is that so many of us are so busy trying to police the emotions of people that you're not realizing that their experiences bring them to the point at which they are now. It has nothing to do with looting being wrong or vandalism being wrong. We all know that it's wrong, but at a certain point, sometimes it's the only thing that draws attention to what you're actually trying to accomplish. I also think that we're losing the big picture that it's a Black issue. First and foremost, you are Black, and then everything else comes underneath that.
Thank you. I think that was everybody. So continuing on with that, we'll go into our next topic. And it's funny that you ended with at this point, it's about being Black first. So we'll move into the idea of the movements that we currently have. The Blackout Coalition, the Black Lives Matter movement, the Trans Lives Matter movement, and so on and so forth. And because of where people stand in that, being that the Black Lives Matter originally started as being centered around the brutality of Black men, there's a disconnect in the movement. Do you feel that there is room for understanding? Because a lot of people do come in and they have the idea of Black lives only matter when white lives, when white people kill them, but we have the Black on Black crime idea. So, Deshaun, oh, well, go ahead,
Go ahead, Corey. No, because me and Corey from the same place.
I thought you were addressing that to me. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh, you can start.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
Because me and you are from the same place. So I want to understand your perspective of it, being black men from Chicago. So you go first.
Okay. I think that a lot of times we get into a me too situation. There's this whole big picture, and then someone adds on something else that says, but you don't care about this until this is, and this is exactly what we're seeing play out. But the bigger picture is for the entire community, and in that community, it encompasses trans, it encompasses the youth, the elderly, the business owner, all of that. But at the very height of all of it, we're all Black, and sometimes there has to be sacrifice. So I understand that somebody may have lost their business because of all of this. And how long it took, like being from Chicago, you actually see where we grew up in neighborhoods that were, I have people that I know that have not left the south side of Chicago, have never even been past the Chicago River. But if they're tearing up their community, it's going to allow them to rebuild that community. I don't care if this stuff burns to the ground. At the end of the day, there needs to be equality, because what you're accepting at this point is just, this is all that I'm good for. I'm good for Royal Shrimp Food on 75th and this, but they can never bring a McCormick's and Smith's in here. Like it just, there's no way to get any of the other subsets straight until you can get the main focus straight. You're Black. And people are upset, and they are at a point now to where if you have to tear this shit up, tear it up. I keep making an example of the prison in Oklahoma, where everyone that was a prisoner, none of them were sick. You have to take it outside of Black and white sometimes. Nobody was actually sick in that prison with coronavirus. They were in a situation that they could not change, just like we're in our skin and we can't change that. Some of the prisoners started getting sick, but none of them had left. And all they kept asking the warden was, can you start having the guards tested? And the warden didn't pay any attention. They started writing letters. Nobody paid attention. Then they started dying, and they started screaming and shouting, and nobody paid attention. But when they tore that motherfucker up, they started paying attention, and they started holding the guards accountable to make sure that you're not coming to work sick. It's the same situation.
All right, and see, a lot of times what we don't realize is the inequality that we experience with them. We don't do anything because that's something that they're ingraining and teaching us, and we're just doing it to each other. It's just the same type of emotion. So we always say, hurt people hurt people. If I'm not equal to this man, the man that usually, what they have done is, we have taken material things, we have taken classes of life amongst ourselves and say, well, I make this much money, so you're not as good as me. So you got the Jordans, I can't afford them, so I'm gonna kill you and get them from you. In some way, form, or fashion, they've just turned us against us. It's no different from back in the days, or we're gonna go back to slavery. You had some house niggas and you had the field niggas. The house niggas got treated much differently because they maintained the house. The field niggas would fought each other for the scraps that was left over. So they all coincide with each other. So that's why I think we'll never get over this until we fix the problem at the top. We're gonna always fight on each other because none of it is equal. We're not equal to them. So we're not gonna be equal to each other.
Dang.
Yeah.
How does this go? I mean, I don't want to go out of order. Is this like an open forum, or is this what?
No, once Deshaun was, if you want to speak, I was.
Yeah, you could just.
Okay,
You know,
I think I'm probably one of the ones that maybe not. I'm listening to what Corey said. I'm listening to what Deshaun said. If we don't tear it up, if I'm mad at Deshaun, I'm not gonna fight Israel. I'm going to fight Deshaun. So I said that to say this. We teared up our stuff. In Tampa, they didn't go out to Westgate or Wesley Chapel. They tore up the neighborhood. I live in the same neighborhood. I'm 0.3 miles from the police station they tried to burn up, and I'm a 1.1 mile from the mall and the AT&T store all that day. So I couldn't come home on that night until like 1 in the morning because they did all of that in my neighborhood. But y'all so mad at the police that you're not going to the courthouse. You're not tearing up the jail. You didn't take your ass down there to the rich people, white people. We mad at the white people. We mad at the police. So yeah, that's where it infuriates me because I don't understand why y'all tearing this up.
Can I jump in real quick, Antoinette? Let me explain something to you. And this is something me and one of my daughters got into a real big argument about this yesterday. Okay, they're not tearing up they're not tearing up anything they own. That's why it's easy for you to do. We have no ownership in our communities. We own nothing. The Arabs come in and own all the liquor stores. The Asians come in and own all of the nail places. We go.
I disagree. Hold on, Deshaun. And now this is where I come back at. I own my life. And now you have came in and tore down the job that employs me to take care of my life in this neighborhood because I work at the Family Dollar right across the street. I don't personally, but the person that does. Now, they can't go to work because that store, like you said, is going to be the last one to get rebuilt. And they've already taken the Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd off the police station. They painted over that the next morning, but the Family Dollar is still broken down. So that's why I have a problem with it. If you want to tear something up, go tear it up. Go tear up the neighborhoods that you're upset with. Go down there to the courthouse and the jail and all them places. They don't go because they're scared. They feel like they can do all of that here. I wish they stopped calling my phone. They can do all of that here because we black people are not going to go out there fighting our own black people, helping to perpetuate the cycle of us beating up on each other. We'll just tolerate it. But that's not fair. That's not fair at all. And to me, that's where I get upset and hurt and frustrated. Because if y'all want to be mad, fight the people you're mad at. I grew up fighting. So when I want to fight, I fight the person that I am upset with. I don't fight somebody else.
So
Antoinette, may I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
When they started looting and vandalizing in your community, because I can only speak for what I'm paying attention to Chicago right now, and I'm paying attention to Atlanta because they hold significance to me.
Mm-hmm.
In Atlanta, when the looting and stuff started, they called the National Guard in, and they sent them to protect a mall here, as opposed to protecting the people. When they started looting and vandalizing in Chicago, they sent the National Guard in to protect what most of you know as the Magnificent Mile. So you are going to take rage out on what you see every day. I read something that Tasha Long posted the other day about it's not about them tearing up their community. They're tearing up what is in their community that is a symbol that they can never achieve. And somewhere we have to start visualizing that it is not about the neighborhood or this and that. We are being oppressed in our own neighborhoods. I can look around at the businesses that are here. If I walk in, every business owner that's here, it's not one black one. They're either Asian or they're of Indian descent. So what were they protecting when they started looting in your city?
Okay.
Did they protect the people or did they?
One second, guys. So, because I want to get some other people's opinion, but you both bring up a good point. And when Corey brought in the idea of what symbolism in our communities, there are a lot of people who have the lack of resources. So they're going to feel like, hey, I don't have, so I'm going to get not all the time what I need, but what they're lacking right now in that community. So, but I want to hear from Deirdre and Nikki because they have a totally different perspective when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement and the Black on Black crime. So I'm going to hear from Nikki first.
I I think in this situation with, I don't understand it at all for Black people to destroy the places that you have to go. When you destroy it, then where are you going? If you're gonna, I feel strongly like Antoinette feels. If you're going to tear it up, go tear up what's going to matter, because they don't care about you tearing up your neighborhood. That's not going to get their attention. That's what they want you to do. Because we're going to be the last to get anything rebuilt. That, like Sean said, they don't care. That's not sending them no message. Tearing up your own neighborhoods. That's what they expect you to do. But what they don't expect you to do is to become strategic and think like they do. And take on their mindset, because that's the only way that you're going to actually beat them. Tearing up, and we've been tearing up stuff for years. And we'll get a temporary release. And then we go right back to the same thing again. So if we keep doing this and we're still getting the same results and nothing is really, really changing, what do we keep tearing up our country for?
Because nothing is really, really changing.
Because nothing is
okay. So, but we're trying to get to change. So if we're going to get to change, the one way that we know how to get to change is we all have to get to become one and unite. And but when we were in the recession and we were tired of what happened under the Bush administration, we all united to make sure Obama was in office. But that's all we did. We didn't make sure Obama had no support in office. We just made sure he got to office. But we all united to do that. So why can't we all unite at one time again to make sure that we put people in office in every position to make sure that we can still get what we need? But we don't do that. Our emotion is to tear it up. But that don't fix nothing. That's not fixing it. I want it to be fixed. I don't want you just to cover it up and put a Band-Aid on it. And I don't think rioting and looting your own neighborhood, that ain't doing nothing.
Nikki, I don't want to move.
No, go ahead, Israel.
That's just my opinion. And as far as Black on Black crime, I never really even had an issue with that. I talked about when Black lives only matter when white people are killing them. That's kind of true. And it wasn't about the Black on Black crime, because I don't even think about that. But that's true, because my Black transgender life don't matter to all Black people. And that's a fact. It doesn't. But, so I have a right to feel some type of way, because my own people that I'm supposed to be fighting for don't even respect me enough, or don't even want me to fight. So how am I supposed to feel as a Black transgender woman? Yes, I'm Black first, but I'm also transgender and a woman.
And that's what Israel, I'm not trying to steal your
time.
I'm not trying to steal your time, Israel. But I'm gonna tell you something, Nikki, and this goes for you and Deidre, because y'all the two only women on here to me. Stop putting trans in front of anything, because to me, when I look at y'all, I see women. You look just like the women in my motherfucking family. If you ask me, you take me to a family reunion, you bitches can eat barbecue just like everybody else, and nobody asks me no questions. I think we automatically put trans in front of things, and then it differentiates you. Everybody, you can walk down any MLK Boulevard and be okay.
Well,
okay.
I think
we do recognize the fact that we're privileged in that manner. But we cannot denounce who we are as trans women. We do realize and recognize that there is a difference, that the heterosexual community is going to see it when they know our truth. And so for me, I'm at a discomposed and disproportionate state of feeling when it comes down to the Black Lives Matter movement. I can't fully support it, because to me it's not radically inclusion within that movement. I think it isolates various individuals with that movement. And so I don't think I have a voice in that particular movement. And so for me, as I look at some of the things that happen within the Black on Black crimes, I do relish the fact that they can go out and kill each other every day, and nothing is said about that or whatever. But you look at the white on Black crime as okay, that's a problem, but it's all a problem to me, and I think it all needs immediate attention to me. That's just my opinion.
So we're gonna go to Isra, and then I want to hear from D Love, and then I'm gonna jump over to Marcos.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on the topic about the tearing up of our own neighborhoods. I think when you look at who's actually doing, and I'm removing from this the other participants who are there just to do these things, to take attention from what's really going on. When you see who's actually doing the tearing up, they're young. They've never seen in their lifetime, let's be honest, protests that don't involve rioting and looting and vandalism. I talk to a lot of them around in the area where I live in, and that's what they think protesting is. So at some point, we have to start teaching instead of just condemning when it comes to these things. I can't say that's wrong without telling you why it's wrong. I can't say you shouldn't do that without telling you how to do what you need to do. But I think we need to change that narrative, number one. When we go to the Black Lives Matter situation as it pertains to trans women, I'm with you because I do see the correlation. If we're being killed by white people that are killing us just because we're Black, and you're being killed by Black people who are killing you just because you're trans, there is a correlation there. But I don't think what we need to always do then is take away from the Black Lives Matter every time it's mentioned, to throw that out there. Not saying that you should diminish what's actually happening to you, but I think when you talk about the big picture, if you don't go into the explanation for those, because I see a lot of people on Facebook every day who say that, then when I have conversations with them about it, then we get down to the root of they're just not understanding that. But the reason we show the difference is because if I kill my brother, generally there's an issue between us. I ain't just killing I'm not just killing a Black man because he a Black man, me. But if Billy Bob over here is killing a brother just because he's a brother, that ain't the same. But again, when you talked about the trans experience with being killed by our brothers, and the same as our brothers being killed by white men who are just doing it just because of the color, there is absolutely a correlation, and it can't be dismissed. You get it?
D-Love?
I want to touch on a couple things that have been talked about. One of the main things I want to piggyback in regard to my trans sisters, because I am a Black trans man, and I feel like I am a Black trans man of privilege. I think that the disconnect comes there because it's kind of like family can fight, but nobody fights against family. So there's not a safe place within my own community, but you want me to stand strong with my community to fight for a different cause. That's a hard pill to swallow, because you want to feel protected and you want to feel safe within your own community. And that's where that disconnect comes. In regard to a lot of the youth that you were talking about, I think that that's because when you think about most of us, we grew up with people that were out in the forefront as far as in the Black movements that were leaders. Those leaders are not so present now. You have people in the inner communities, yes, but they don't make themselves known for people to seek them out even so much. They may make the news sometimes or things like that, but it needs to be on a wider front. People really need to see this and know who they can go to and how they can do that. And then maybe more voices will be heard in regard to that. As far as the aspect of the Black, this is just my personal perspective. I feel like we miss a lot of things in this situation and others because we don't understand that the Black man is, and I'm not just going to single him out, but the Black man is the future of our race. And the higher powers understand that, and that's why they constantly target. They target that, they break us down on that level. We are inbred to fight, so we fight within ourselves and we're breaking ourselves down on another level. It's so many different layers to it, but we cannot get ourselves together to talk and get our differences out so we can be a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you. So before we go on to the next topic, I want to go to Marcos because I know that he has something to
Black Lives Matter
to address. Oh, and Wendell. So we'll start with Marcos and then we'll go to Wendell and then we'll move on.
Are you okay?
Marcos?
Deshaun? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me mute my phone. No, I didn't realize.
I just didn't want him to say anything that he didn't want aired. So I'm going to try to stay focused on points, and I tried to jot them down so I didn't go all over the place. But the first one I'm going to get to really, really quick is the narrative of Black on Black crime versus what the fight is. I hear that said, well, we don't say anything when it's Black on Black crime. Part of what I really want people to start to really think on right now is that a great deal of the issue in the past issue has been holding those of power, i.e. the police, accountable for their actions when they happen against people, in particular, Black men. Not necessarily the white on white crime, the Black on Black crime, because we go to jail disproportionately against anyone else for crimes we commit against each other. The issue is the accountability of the officers when they kill us. We've watched video after video of brothers getting shot in the back, no nothing, with no accountability. One of my fears with this particular case, everybody's saying, oh my God, make it first degree. I hear the anger in that, but unless you want to see this man walk again, that's the last thing you want to see done. Right. Pay attention. And then the other thing, we talk about the tearing up and the looting, and someone made a point to say that it's the youngsters. I'm going to go a little bit further than that. It's the parents of the youngsters to educate, because once we got our rights, we stopped fighting, and we waited until it happened again to fight again. See, we keep talking about something that happened 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago with Dr. King, Joseph Robinson, and we can just name them. But where are your leaders now? And why haven't we continued to groom leaders? We wait for one or two leaders. It's our responsibility in our community to continue to groom and not wait for one. You have that right. You have that right as a trans woman. Stop waiting for somebody else to be the savior for you, because it ain't happening. It's not happening. And until we really resonate with ourselves, can't nobody come fix our community but us. We can't run every time once we become affluent. Somebody got to stay behind and say we are worthy to do it here. So that's that. Hold on. I tried to jot it down so I didn't forget it. Everybody was making really, really good points. And when you talk about the Black Lives Movement, Black Lives Matter movement, Blackout, we have really, really great causes that come out of these things. As I said in my initial thing, it's about being consistent. Once you get a temporary result, you don't stop there. That's your place to start. You ain't even, you've yet to begin to start. And to Deidre and Nikki's point, I literally just had this conversation with my soon-to-be former boss about movements like this. And when we say Black Lives Matter, but do they matter? As I watched the video, I don't know when this beating happened of this young lady at this gas station, but when I watch stuff like that, when do we start taking ownership and actually protecting our own? And that starts with educating and really holding people accountable. And baby, time something happen now, this is the first thing we pick up. We want to record.
I agree.
We want to record. We don't hold people accountable, and we don't want to be held accountable. Just as soon as we start holding people accountable for what they say on social media, don't tell me that I'm grown, we get super sensitive. It is levels to this. And we really have to start breaking down those levels and holding each other accountable and ourselves accountable. So that's.
Thank you.
And Wendell, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive because y'all have already exposed a lot of great things. But what I will say is I think that it's very important that we as Black people understand that we have to isolate these conversations. Right now, when we're talking about Black Lives Mattering, that this is not necessarily the time to start opening up floodgates to have the oppression awards, right? It's not the time to say my oppression is worse than your oppression, because what it does is it discredits the battle. So we have to take each battle one step at a time. So that's what I have to say about that. What I will say as far as moving forward with these types of movements is we really have to understand that if we don't support ourselves, we can't expect others to support us. So if we're not organizing rallies for our trans brothers and sisters when they are going through something, we can't get upset if they're not doing it. Because Black Lives Matter was actually created by two women that are lesbians, right? Open lesbians. So it's unfair to say that it does not encompass all of us. We make it separate. We are divisive with ourselves because we get in this oppression Olympics where we have to prove that we're going through more. The other part of that is, one thing that I picked up in grad school was Jane Elliott created this communication module. And in this communication module, she introduced what is called courageous conversations. In the LGBTQ plus community, we don't like to have courageous conversations. Courageous conversation says that this may not be something that makes you feel good, but you're gonna take away something from it. One of those arguments with trans women specifically is, I don't think Deirdre nor Nikki has to worry about some of the things that some of our other trans sisters have to deal with. But we don't like to have that conversation because we don't want to associate sex work with it, right? But the reality is, when was the last time you went to a heterosexual rally for a woman that was a prostitute? These are conversations that are not necessarily comfortable to have, but they are reality. I'm not saying that all women that are trans women that have been attacked deal with sex work, but what we all know, if we're being courageous, is that it is closely related to that area. It is also closely related to some of our trans sisters that are millennials that feel like it's okay to go on social media and bash men that they are sleeping with. These are courageous conversations that we have to have. So when we start saying that Black people don't care about our trans sisters, we have to take all of that into consideration, because in the 80s and the early 90s, we know that gay men were being bashed. And it wasn't because they were doing anything to heterosexual men. It was because heterosexual men just wanted to bash gay men. They were literally targeting gay men. I don't think that we can say that exact same thing happens with trans women. So we have to have courageous conversations that says that we have to talk about all of it. Now, of course, it's not 100% on any aisle, but what I'm saying is that we have to take it all into consideration if we open up Pandora's box. Because when you open up Pandora's box, everything has to come out. So I think that we have to isolate it. George Floyd is a great example, because when we saw the video of him laying down on that curb, losing his life with that knee in his neck, we didn't know that the next day we were going to find out he had a porn. We didn't know any of these things. We found that out later, that he was a porn star. We didn't know that at the time. We just saw a Black man laying on the curb, losing his life. We didn't know that they were going to say he had meth, and we didn't know we were going to find out he did drugs or had drugs, but we saw a Black man that was losing his life. So I think it's important that we isolate conversations.
And we only found that out for them to validate the reason why they did to what they did.
Definitely.
It had nothing to do. It's just no different if, God forbid, and I've seen some what we like to consider in our community real girls die, and you find out the first thing they say, they don't say a Black woman was murdered, a transgender one, because it spins the narrative that this person looks like this and has fooled this person. Because I'm gonna tell you something, D-Love, I did not know nothing until you just told me.
Me neither.
And I'm like, what the fuck? So, you know, and that is the world. The world views, like you said, Blacks, women of trans experience, gentlemen of trans experience, they view us as a threat when you have that look. And then all of what the bad things that they feel we are, they dissect them and they pick them apart, and then they put them into the media, and that is what demonizes us.
I have a real quick something to say, just really quick, and I'm not going to take it. I do. You said that we don't have that issue as much now as far as them just wanting to bash. I'm going to disagree. I think you do have people who are intentionally out there who know that you have those who are passable, who know that you have those who are not passable. You have some evil people who are intentionally out to bash. Yes, you do, especially within the trans community. So I'm going to have to disagree on that one.
Well, let me tell you where I agree with you,
Last
but I disagree with you. I'm not getting back.
Last thoughts, and then
no, I'm talking about in specific to the trans experience. So
okay,
yeah.
If we're last thought in really quick, I want to chime this in. Nikki and Deidre, y'all know y'all two of my good sisters.
Yeah.
I cannot speak on your experience and what you all feel and how you feel about situations that go on in the trans environment because I'm not trans. I can tell you how a drag queen feel. I can tell you how a young black man feel, or middle-aged black man now. But I cannot tell you how you all feel. So for people to say that they don't think, that is how they think. But how you feel, from me, it still is important. So whatever you feel, Deidre, and whatever you feel, Nikki, that's your feelings and they're valid. I'm not going to try to change what you're feeling. Mm-hmm. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Ned. I just want people to understand, yes, we are trans women. That I am what people call, I guess, a trans woman of privilege. You know, I'm able to work. But let me tell you what the trans woman of privilege does experience. When they do know RT, and when they do get mad or have an attitude with us, the first thing they do to us is demonize us back to being a man. You know, so these are things that we do experience, even as what people call privileged trans women. And I have a heart and passion for all trans women. Everybody's not going to be privileged or passable. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't take away from them, their womanhood. And I just want to make sure people understood that we still deal with these issues too, even as what they call privileged trans women.
Okay. Moving on to the next topic. We're going to make this, we're going to try to stay within time on this. I knew that was going to be a long one. So speaking on the topic of privilege, this is to all of my gay gentlemen on the panel. Do you believe that there is privilege in being gay and Black? We always talk about the privilege of being gay and white. Do you find that there is any privilege in being gay and Black?
Who is that?
Absolutely.
You want to go first, Cody?
Absolutely. There definitely is privilege to being gay and Black, as a gay Black man, and it lies in the factor of being a threat. Someone said earlier that they see Black men as the race of the future, and that we are a threat to the white man, and that's absolutely true. We are in this society, Black men are treated as the boogeyman. We are painted to be this big scary figure, which is why you have your modern day Karens who can call and say, there's a Black man attacking me, and instantly they're gonna come ready to use force and ready to eliminate the threat. But there was a Princeton University study that it found that it's also true that the white society mitigates their shame in being biased against Black men in general, because they give preferential treatment to gay Black men so that they can hire gays and cover the Black men have been hired thing. But in the past, one of the hugest threats from Black men to the white man was their attraction, the white women's attraction to Black men. And to those white men in that time, they felt, number one, it was going to mix cultures. It was going to eliminate their race, which is pretty much has been done. In the next 20 years or so, you won't be able to find somebody on this planet that's purely white. That is what they are afraid of. And I think that the reason that they give preferential treatment to gay Black men is because by you being openly gay, you have told the white man that you are not as much of a threat to their race or what they deem as their purity. And so I feel like there is a privilege in being gay and Black. It shows in job numbers. Gay Black men are a lot more likely to become successful. They're a lot more likely to be paid more. They're a lot more likely to move up the ladder in corporate. So it's absolutely a privilege.
It is a privilege, but let me tell you what I think that the problem with the privilege is, in some senses, we're gonna say on my side, I usually walk into meetings, and if I'm being just my normal self, no one thinks that I'm a gay Black man. Unfortunately, when I walk into meetings with some white women, they're more intimidated by me. So you then find yourself naturally trying to turn on like, oh my God, hi. It's that eventual, that work voice, so we like to say, to give them a level of comfort. And in all of this, I realized for myself that I do that. And it's something that I feel like I'll never do again, to make someone else feel comfortable. To make you feel more comfortable to be around me, I have to turn on a level of femininity or a level of change in voice in order for you to feel more comfortable and know that I'm a gay man. I just don't think that's necessary.
Israel?
Wow.
I'm piggybacking. Those are my sentiments exactly. Sometimes, even like today, I was talking to my boss, and he asked me a question. Why do sometimes you change your voice and change your vernacular? And I told him I learned a long time ago that you have to be able, well, I accepted that you have to be able as a Black man to code switch depending on who you're dealing with. And at this point in my life, as he said, I don't care to do that anymore. This is what you get. However you deal with it, that's your problem, you know.
No, I want to be clear that code switching does not exist exclusively to speaking to white people. There are Black people that you also have to code switch, and it's not in the name of fitting into a race. It is in the name of fitting into a class. Classism exists in both white and Black communities. So if you speak a certain way, if I speak the way I spoke when I'm outside with my friends and everything, while I'm in front of these Black people who are considering themselves scholars and things of that nature, then I'm going to be looked at as quote unquote the help. They're going to look, oh, he must be dumb. But if I use my enhanced vocabulary, which I have in the back of my head, but I don't necessarily use 24/7, then I'm looked at as somebody who's respectable. So it's code switching has to do more with classism than it does race.
I'm glad Neaundre said that, because not even just with race, in this Black gay community, since we're using Black, there are classisms. We all do it. Yeah, I have trans sisters that do it, because the camp trans, excuse me, I hope it's not incorrect politically, but I'm sorry, Nikki, y'all correct me, Deidre. The camp trans girl that just started is not treated like the trans girl that's already there in season. The trans man that's already there is not treated the same way as someone that's just started. And even in the drag community, in the gay male good job community, I've seen it. I've watched it play out since I've been out since the age of 15, and I've watched it play out even how I was treated and how I treat others. So yeah, that exists everywhere.
And I just want to piggyback on what you just said, Antoinette, because it was something that I heard earlier from. I did want to say that the trans experience, because we have two beautiful trans women on our panel right now, and we have a very convincing trans man. We don't have anyone who may sit in the middle or who's very far from being where they can possibly get. So I just wanted to say that the trans experience, we were talking about earlier, it's not one experience, because that's a different experience for a Nikki and a Deidre than it is for Shay, who hasn't even found her real name yet, still walking around with flat chest, but she got on girl clothes. That's a completely different stigma. And just to piggyback off what they were talking about with the trans, as far as them being sexual workers, I think Wendell was the one speaking about that. We, the gay community, we have to remove that stigma that we created about being trans and being a sex worker. Because when Black Lives Matter is marching, they're not marching and saying all Black lives matter instead of prostitutes, because straight Black women are prostitutes as well. That is a means to an end for them. And part of the trans oppression is them not being able to find financial security. So this is what they're left with.
And we also, as a community, especially those for those who work in an authoritative manner or hiring manager, such as myself, we have to give our trans sisters a chance, no matter how they look.
Absolutely.
You know, you can't go in and say, well, Deidre and Nikki, you get the job, but you, because you look like that, you can't. We have to embrace them. You know, and it starts with us. So
can I say that that was just an example that I gave, and I that's why I made sure that I inserted that it's not 100%. I don't think that all trans women or trans men are sex workers, and I actually use heterosexual prostitutes as an example in that conversation. So I do want to make sure that it's understood that I'm aware that it's not 100% anything. But as far as privilege,
no,
it's fine. No,
your point.
No, it's fine.
Just adding. We're trying to add the responsibility of our community with those notions.
Right, but we have gay males that are also sex workers that are also in that field. But that's another conversation. But what I do want to say is that we all have a privilege. Every person, every individual on this earth has a specific privilege that is shaped directly for whatever they identify as, whatever their class is, whatever their ethnicity is. There is always a certain privilege. Because I always say that Black people have a privilege of being loud. We can be loud all the time because it's excused because they say, well, they're Black. Right, so we may see it as a privilege, but everything that you identify as a privilege is not a privilege. We learn as children that every time someone laughs, they're not laughing with you. Sometimes they're laughing at you. So I think that we have to be careful when we identify privileges that we do not have, that we self-acclaim for ourselves. But I do believe that we do have certain privileges. But I work in academia, and I can tell you in academia, I don't know where the gay male privilege exists. I haven't found it yet. If it exists, it's somewhere hiding. But what I will tell you is that I have a lot of cohorts that don't mind having good conversations with me. But I have to fight for every single thing that I get. They don't mind putting me on a committee, but I have to fight to be the chair of the committee. So I do want to make sure that it's known that it is not as easy as some may think, because like Neaundre said, and I agree with him, everything fits in its own box. So I think that there is a certain amount of privilege that we have depending on your type of job, the type of job you have. I think that that is a specific place, because in education, you have to be careful because a lot of administrators fear gay men because of rumors of the past or facts of the past. So they don't like putting gay men in specific positions because they fear the outcome. That's not a privilege, that's a curse. So I just want to make sure that I point that out. But I do think I agree with Neaundre wholeheartedly that depending on what your job is and what your financial status is, I think that there is a certain amount. But I do agree with Israel also. I don't believe in code switching. The way I'm talking to you right now is the way I'm going to talk to you at the club after 25 drinks. I'm not going to change who I am for anyone. I'm just not. I'm not going to. If I'm not going to change for my family, I'm not going to change for a foe. That's for sure. But I do believe that sometimes some people have to change. And that is fair. I think that is fair, and I think it should be acceptable. We should all be accepted for being different, rather than always trying to force people to be like us. So I'm okay if you don't code switch, but understand that I'm not gonna code switch. If I'm gonna wear heavy Carmex and feel like I have on lip gloss, I'm gonna wear heavy Carmex and feel like I have on lip gloss. And it's gonna have to be all right, because I have a pedigree that says I can do that.
Dang.
So I think that's important.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, Wendell. Because you had brought up something I wanted to ask Damien. Was it okay to ask? Because everyone was saying code switching. I was like, what the hell y'all talking about? Code switching. Because I guess I am a code switcher. Because
we all are.
We all are.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm really, like Neaundre knows, I am Church Rashad is different from Antoinette on Show Rashad, who's different from education coordinator. It's a different dialect and person I am. So with all of us being code switchers, I don't know how, is that a bad thing?
No,
I don't think it's bad.
I think you brought up the perfect example when you said Church Rashad, because everybody code switch when they go to church. If you curse on a daily basis, you don't curse when you're in church. If you're checking your phone every 5 minutes, you don't do so when you're in church. So everybody
the Lord knows his mouth.
I think it's when you feel like you have a problem. Like when in the past when I've done it, I felt like you said, I felt like in order to get along, in order to get that promotion, I had to present myself like this. And not saying, you know, like I can get real gutter and abrasive. You know, that's me. But then I understand the difference in being professional said and then being said. My issue with it became that I felt like I could never be comfortable in who I was, just being me, because of where I was. And I think that's where my problem became, or I got to that point, and it just became an issue to the point I'm like, okay, I understand the difference in vernacular. Changing that, yeah. But having to present myself as someone else in order to get along and get that promotion I'm not with it.
But Antoinette, also, we have to watch what we title things as. Everything isn't code switching. Being appropriate is not code switching.
Thank you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Being appropriate is not a part of code switching. Right. If I don't curse at church, it's because it's not appropriate to curse at church. I'm not being fake and placing a facade. I'm being appropriate. So when I'm talking to if I'm talking to a coworker, I'm not going to necessarily be as comfortable as I would be with my sister or my brother or a friend. You know, it's not going to be the same. But it's not code switching. Code switching is when you're doing it for the advancement. You are purposely perpetuating a facade. That is code switching. Code switching is saying that I'm going to change my all of who I am, tuck it away, and be somebody else to fit into this equation. That is code switching. But saying that I over-articulate when I'm at work because this is how I feel comfortable at work. People in call centers, they'll put on their call center voice. Or people at hotels, I know so many people from New Orleans that have this rich accent, but when they're at work, it's gone, right? That is not code switching to me. That is understanding how to be appropriate for what you are doing.
And Antoinette, the example
one second, Deshaun, 1 second. I want to say something really quick. So we're gonna I'm gonna let Deshaun speak, and then we are going to move on to the next topic. But I want everyone to please, please, please. I see that this beautiful woman, I have been waiting for her to come on, has joined us. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Listen, Michelle.
Listen, I'm so humbled and grateful that you invited me. I actually, I've been on, but I'm not familiar with Zoom. So I've been enjoying the conversation that you all are having. Number one, I enjoyed the knowledge, and I was just taught a lot. And I have so much respect for the community. I consider myself an advocate and an ally. I've been one my whole life. And I do believe that we do an Advocates and Ally Summit here for the LGBTQIA community because, and excuse my voice, I'm a little hoarse right now because I have not stopped talking since yesterday.
Whew, yes,
however, I think that this is great because the one thing that you can do in these conversations is learn. And you cannot be so arrogant as a heterosexual to think that you understand not only the communities that exist, but the ins and outs. And there's a decorum and there's a je ne sais quoi to it. And so thank you all for even having an open space that may not even necessarily be a safe space, because people need to understand what it means to be in the community. And I see my dear friend on here who I was in college with, and I'm going to call him Corey out of respect, because that is and we did several shows together at Alabama State, and he knows that they affectionately call me a child of the children because of my backstory in the community. So thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Welcome.
Deshaun, so final thoughts.
So I would not like to ask, I don't have anything. I would like the next question for you to go ahead and pose the next question, and I want Miss Michelle to go ahead and kick it off because I just enjoy that much. So
So I'm glad that you came on because I thought that we were going to miss this. We were supposed to actually have two. It was supposed to be Michelle and
here you go. I had to let you in, so Dame texted me and was like, Michelle trying to get in. I'm like, oh shit.
Yes.
I wasn't
so this is a very interesting topic to me. And I wanted to speak on womenism right now. And the question is, well, it wasn't a question, so the position of women in the community right now is you see them on the front lines. They have stepped into these positions of leadership. When we see people in front at the protests, or we see them on television, it's always a woman on the front line, or always a woman speaking. And their stories are told. And it's specifically with the whole Breonna Taylor killing. We've had George Floyd, we've had Ahmaud Arbery. And then once we heard about the Breonna Taylor story, it kind of faded away. And then after these two other incidents, it kind of came back after the George Floyd. So where do you all feel that our stories of women and their position are within the talks, within the movement right now?
I think that if we, I'm going to always look at things from a historical standpoint, and women bring forth life. And the one thing you bring forth, you're going to protect is life. And a lot of times our deaths go unnoticed. You all were talking earlier about trans women, and I've seen a lot in the news how they are murdered, they are marginalized already. And what's amazing is one of my first students, my favorite students, his name was Ryan, and he's now Diamond. And for a minute when I came on and I saw Nikki Diamond Simone, I said, wait. Absolutely beautiful. And you're asking why we're on the front lines, because we fight for what is right. We fight for life. We fight for people to live their best life. It is something natural within us. And whether our sons are straight, whether they are gay, whatever, I'm even getting to the point, I told a dear friend of mine, I'm tired of all these labels. Let people be who they are. And what's amazing, we're on these front lines because we believe in life. And when you begin to snuff out life and people's quality of life, you've already lost any battle you're trying to fight. Because today it's George Floyd, it was Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, but then on down the line in 10 years, what happens when it's one of our trans sisters, trans brothers? I don't have a lot of time to get caught up in the title of it. I just believe let people live. And I'm going to fight for you because your life will and can directly impact mine. Because I don't know where my daughter's going to end up, and I don't know what life my child is going to bring into the world. And I need a life that is here, that is full of equality for anyone on 2 feet. And so when I come into these discussions, and I heard a gentleman talking about how people in positions of power, and when they do have an alternative lifestyle that someone may not be accustomed to, you find yourself being marginalized and not getting promotions and things. Well, here in Montgomery, I'm always leading the line because of my story. And my story allows me, I'm so sorry, you all would not believe though, this is somebody very important clicking in, but I want to finish this. My story, let me give it to you right quick, why he probably was excited to have me, and Corey knows. So I grew up in a time where being gay meant death. I'm 46. My father was a closet homosexual. He's a part of the original grouping of those people. And he was married to my mother, and he loved my mother, and he loved me. But he had to live a life in private, because it wasn't because he didn't accept who he was, but he was head of government systems for AT&T. They would have fired him if they found out he was a gay man. He was ostracized because even the conversation about it, the Black church has done one of the most ungodly-like things to the LGBTQIA community. The Black church is the reason for a lot of this trauma. If we begin to look at the history, my uncle was president of the Black Gay Alliance in San Francisco, Robert Terry Higgins. My Uncle Connie, who was over the minority division of the Small Business Association, he was a Black Republican and he was gay. And I knew his arm piece. She was my Aunt Helen. She dressed Hillary Clinton. I know the community and I know the hell the community has caused. And until these types of conversations start to happen, because what happens is we push our trauma on our children. And so when people are beating up on Dwayne Wade, well, see, you can't understand it because number one, you don't exist in his financial freedom. You don't exist in his freedom. So you don't understand why he's fine letting his child be whomever he is. Poverty breeds also a lot of foolishness. And a lot of stuff gets kicked back because people are driven into hiding spaces. So, you know, when we out here, we hollering and leading the line for George Floyd and all of this, man, I know a lot of folk we can lead the line for. I know a lot of trans and a lot of gay men who have been beaten by police and community and mistreated and lost jobs and families have put them out. So when you see women on the front line, because that son that you wouldn't let thrive in the world, that was my baby. That girl who may have come in a male body, but that girl who wanted to explore and live, you drove into the closet because your lack of understanding. And excuse my language, I've always told people, baby, gay men rule the world. Have always. But just because you didn't know it, because they were too afraid, because you can't see. I'm so sorry. My phone is
We understand.
like crazy. Listen, I'm not gonna monopolize this conversation. I'm with y'all.
I love it. I love it. You just made
so
you gave me everything
and Corey knows I gotta click and see his face before I have to pause. Where did he go? There's my buddy. Hey, David. He knows. I fight good fights. And if you have friends that may be heterosexual and they ain't willing to lead the line for you, kick their ass to the curb. If you are in these spaces, if you are a principal and you in leadership, I admonish you all, don't you ever go in the closet. You are the salt of the earth. You the flavor. Without you, we have nothing. We have no color. We have no vibrancy. And when we teach our children that, first of all, my sexuality ain't even none of your business. Stop requiring people to identify their sexuality before you identify their intelligence. And so when people like myself and we have these forums, and I admonish, our mayor was there, our city council, because y'all need to put in legislation to protect them, protect us. You all, I mean, this ain't just baby, listen, and this is the strongest voting block you got. We don't want to talk about that. So when you all make a decision to say this is who I am, and unapologetically not care what anybody thinks of you, don't change your tone, don't change your walk, don't change your flavor to make someone make them uncomfortable, because that opens dialogue. Make them ask questions. It starts dialogue, because a lot of them sitting up with the issues in their house and they don't know it.
Or they do.
And that's part of the problem. I'm sitting here. How do you know that these are trans women? How?
I'll say the same thing to me.
They're gorgeous. How? I came on the camera. I looked at them. I said, Lord, have mercy. I looking for thunderous mess. And these divas are gorgeous.
Thank you.
And if I'm in a space and I see someone disrespect you, it's my responsibility.
Yep.
How I'm going to lead the line for George Floyd life and I don't lead it for Deidre? Come on now, we hypocrites. So continue to have these conversations, have these spaces. Because if you don't do it, how will we ever know?
Yes,
so
but
now I'm going to look for the coding, and I'm going to look for, you better not switch up your tone. I'm going to tell my brothers and sisters that you better not. I have a coworker right now that I'm fighting with, and I want to say Antoinette Roberts. Is that correct? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah.
Doing artists wrong. And I tell the boys, I said, that's Mr. Artist. But Miss Summer, that was a girl. I said, how do you know? Did they ever drop their pants for you? And what does that have to do with respect and following instructions? It's up to us to stay in our place, but then empower you all. And also, I'm proud of this moment. Empower us, because I'm you. And you me. And if we ain't together, we ain't none of us gonna win. If I can go on hold for a minute and take this call, I promise I'm coming back. But I got to take
We'll wait for it. We'll wait for you. Go ahead, Deshaun.
And then what she said, I agree with that, because we are more interested in our Black communities and especially in our Black families. We will protect our child molesting ass uncles. We will protect your child molesting ass aunties, your drunk daddies. But the moment you find out there's a faggot or a punk or somebody trans in your family, you ostracize them. You put them on a shelf as if they are misused goods. And that is something we have to speak up upon in our own families. And that is obviously why we've created so many of our own personal families.
I think, what I think is the core problem as to why that happened. I think that the core problem is the Black church. The Black church continues to preach hate amongst the pulpit about these things.
Uh-oh. Did we lose her?
She just paused. She ain't gone. Android.
Well, hey, can I throw this in really quick while she's on pause? Going back to the original topic that you threw out about women on the front lines or women in this movement, I haven't really seen a bunch of women in my area, because I really try to hone in on my community, immediate community. I haven't seen a bunch of that, and I will say from what I've noticed, they do get lost a lot here in translation, because it's all, and women are not afraid to do it, because in this area, women are more appreciated and softer. A Black man, they'll throw on their head. Not so much a woman, what I've seen. This is my experience. And the last woman, y'all mentioned somebody, and again, I might be out of touch because I am rarely out. I'm always working for something. Sandra Bland was the last one that really set in my heart, like, oh, wow. Like, that made me take notice. So women, I think, are nurturing. I mean, hell, I take care of my mother. She 4 doors down from me. And every day, because I'm working from home, she brings me lunch. Women, like Michelle was saying, they are the nurturer. They are the giver. They are the giver of life. They just tend to lead the way most times, when most men are either scared or don't know how. And that's what I've noticed from the protests I've been watching here in my immediate community.
We're going beyond the movement, the protests, the rioting. I'm also asking, and I'm going to hit 2 topics with one: politics and the Black vote, and women in that. Right now, we are at a time when we are holding Joe Biden accountable for choosing a woman, a Black woman, to be his running mate. Not a Black man, not another white man, but a woman to be his running mate. And we are fighting for which one of these women is going to be his running mate. And some people are, holding the Black vote. They're making videos of, choose a white woman or you won't get our vote. I don't know if you all have seen that video.
Foolishness. P. Diddy, Naomi Campbell, all of them are fucking fools.
So,
Marcos, you have the floor.
I'm going to start it off with something that Michelle said in a different way. We are in the same storm, but in a different boat. And when you listen to people who are affluent in a way in which their privilege and their finances can keep them a certain way, and you have the ability to influence large masses of people, that is very dangerous, a very dangerous message to put out there and to continue to send throughout the world. The other thing, as far as talking about Joe Biden in the woman vote, because I want us to start being very intentional about knowing what was said, not what we wanted to hear. He said, I will choose a woman. Those were his words. We want a Black woman, or certain people want a Black woman. He said a woman. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't educate ourselves, one, on what was said, and then we start running with it. If you're gonna hold the vote and listen to someone who has the ability to leave here and go do and live their life, baby, that's you choosing 4 more years of this. That's you saying, here's my pick for y'all to pick for me. Going back real quick, and I'm just gonna, the other side of this bigger picture, when you talk about the fight and all of that, and knowing where to put your fight, baby, when she talked about whoever said it, we voted Barack in, and then y'all went away from the poll. Baby, know that your fight continues at the local level, the state level, until you get there, and know that you have to hold your city council, your alderman, or whatever your setup is. Know what your setup is where you live. Baby, my councilwoman can't stand me because she get an email from me damn near every other week. If you could clean up down the street, baby, these tax dollars get paid every year out of my escrow. Y'all can clean up down here. Hold these folks accountable and know where the fight starts and know where it continues to hold folks accountable. But don't let somebody who clearly is in a different income bracket tell you what ain't gonna happen in your community.
Marcos, you preaching the truth. You are preaching, because I want to interject this really quick. Y'all say what you want, but prisons sound cute until you go. I haven't been able to vote.
Can I pause you for a second? I just want to pause you. Prison don't sound cute.
Okay. Well, I'm saying the theory. See, everybody think it's cute. Oh, I ain't gonna vote. Oh, child, I'm gonna go out here and loot, rob, whatever. Until you're there, I haven't been able to vote since I was 18 years old. That is the last time I voted. That is 22 years ago. So you better believe I'm registered now and I get to vote, and I'm so excited about it. So if you get this privilege taken away from you, you will learn to value it. Because I didn't value nothing old me. I just thought, I don't care. Child, that don't got nothing to do with me. But I wanted to interject that, because when he said your financial status means a lot, no, your conviction and everything else, it's a lot that is weighing on this for us in Florida, because over 100,000 of us now get to vote that couldn't vote before.
Right.
There's never a reason to hold your vote. There's never.
Changes the state, but I just want to piggyback off of what Marco said as far as their financial status. When I saw that video, the first thing that hit my mind was they are speaking like affluent people, and unfortunately, they sound just like people who they claim to be against, because that's just not the way democracy works. It doesn't work that way. And that's exactly what we should be fighting against, is making deals. Because literally what you are doing, if you're telling someone that you pick this candidate or I don't vote for you, is you are making a deal. No, choose who you think should be your running mate and who will make you successful. From a strategic standpoint, I can understand choosing a Black woman. It covers the woman vote. It encompasses the Black community. I understand that choice. I do not understand that community giving him an ultimatum of, oh, we're not going to give you our vote. And realistically, if he wanted to, if he was that dirty, he could really just say, okay, it's either me or him. Like, so where's the threat? There's no threat against me as a running mate, because you have shit in the office right now. So what am I going to lose? You're losing if you hurt yourself by not voting for me because I didn't choose the candidate that you wanted. And that's just not how the democracy works. It doesn't work that way. You don't get to threaten someone with your vote. You get to do your due diligence, understand the policies of the person, and choose the candidate that you choose is most closely aligning with your issues.
And just real quick, and know that there are other Black women too, besides Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris. And if I pronounce her name wrong, please forgive me. But you have a senator out of Florida. You have other people, right?
And she's
like very like you have other people that could be. But why is it important for me for him real quick to pick a woman though? Is to show right now in a time where we got a president who don't keep his word, that he kept his word. That's the only reason for me that it is important that he pick a woman.
Correct. Right.
Well, I would like to see
I want him to pick Obama.
I would like to see history made when I get to finally vote again. I would love to see the glass ceiling at least getting cracked. Hillary tried to break it, but if we can get any woman as a first vice president, I would be like, baby, I help do that.
Right.
And then I'm not just on solely black, because I want whatever woman is going to help get the job done, that's going to align with my views and get this world and country of ours in shape. I'll take it, because I have my picks. And truthfully, I don't live in Georgia, so I really don't know a lot about Stacey Abrams, if I'm being completely honest. I know who I like nationally, but I have not sat down to take the time to get to know some of these candidates that they're throwing out, Kamala and Stacey Abrams. I'm trying to educate myself as best as possible before November so that I can vote, huh?
You know Val Demings?
Oh, I'm learning.
She's out of Orlando.
Yeah, I got a whole list. It's like 6 of them. Learning.
And that's what we get to do.
Final thoughts? I'm going to move on to the next one. Any final thoughts on politics and the black vote? Corey, I did hear you begin to speak about holding the black vote or holding the vote.
No, it's been covered, but I will just end with saying how excited I am for Antoinette. I'm for Rashad.
I see.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Make my vote, bitch.
And the thousands of others. And the thousands of others.
Me and Amari Lavish going together. That's going to be hilarious.
That is good.
Don't y'all get put out them people polls.
Right. They
All I
gonna
see is
distance their ass anyway.
Look, this gonna be me, y'all. They gonna. I know it's touchscreen now or whatever, but I'm gonna be like, sir, are you done? Not yet.
1 to 2 years.
So we're talking about the black vote, and we came across speaking earlier about leadership and education and organizing, things of that nature. What are your thoughts on how we can start that, how we can mobilize and plan getting these started within our communities and filtering them throughout? I know that's very because we don't have, okay. So many people in this conversation and before have spoken about the need to plan, the need to organize, the need to mobilize within our community when it comes to voting locally, in the bigger elections, and in strengthening and rebuilding our communities. Where do you think that needs to start right now? Because we can say things are happening, but then it falls off. So where do we start now?
Is it just about voting, or is this about everything?
This is everything.
Well, I'm gonna throw this out there real quick. As somebody that's probably was out of work for 2 months and back working now, we got to get back to work in some kind of way. I don't know what's the organized structure to get it done, but when people are out of work, we now have. I was telling this to Neaundre the other day. We have time. See, before when Trayvon Martin happened and Sandra Bland, all the other that was minimized to their communities, we didn't have time because I got to be to work tomorrow, baby. I got kids to feed, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm off and I don't have no money. So, baby, I can go down here to this protest. And matter of fact, I need some Pampers, so I'm going up in there to get me some too. That's the difference. People don't have money. So we have time because I don't have a job and my bank account is looking crazy and these kids still got to eat. So if I can go out there and help be a part of this, so we got to get back to work. And I know that goes against the COVID-19 right now, but even if they can make some of these jobs more work from home jobs that possibly can be, America has got to get back to work. That's my stance and my position on it. I understand everybody has their science and everything's going on, but once we're back to work, more people have other things to focus on besides, well, I ain't got nothing else to do no way. So let me get on out here in these streets.
I understand that.
But what I think he's saying is, what do we need to do? So I'm thinking that you need to be more involved in your local community.
Yeah.
Like Marco said, was it your commissioner, Marco? Said, hey,
councilwoman.
Your city council person, probably because you are now holding them accountable for things that are happening. So if we don't have any involvement in our community, we don't have any involvement in the community decisions. It's no different from being a very small community for those of us who live in HOAs. If you don't go to the HOA meetings, you don't get a say of what happens in this neighborhood.
Get a memo.
It is what it is. So that's D-Love. Go ahead, because I know you were saying something.
Real quick, can everybody pause their
I got
pause their screens until okay.
Bring me back in.
I'm about to bring you back in. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to mute everybody, and then we go in because y'all hear that feedback, or is it just me?
No, we hear. That's all I was trying to get everybody to do.
All right, so give me one moment, please. Mute all. Mute all. More. Let me find Deidre real quick. All right, Deidre, here you go. Deidre, would you just go? All right, there you go. All right, so Deidre asked to start video. All right. And now I'm getting ready to unmute everybody, and you guys are back. Shit, I don't know how to unmute y'all.
Oh, you can just go through and unmute yourself.
You can just unmute yourself.
All right, go.
All right, D, you have the floor.
Who?
He needs
D-Love.
to unmute.
He got to unmute. He has to unmute. Unmute your phone. Unmute your screen, D.
Y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one thing that also needs to be done, and I can't necessarily tell you the steps to do it. However, I think that it needs to be communicated or taught for people who don't value voting, related to something, or find a way to relate it to something that brings value to them. Because if I think it's broken down more in a layman's terms, I think they will understand the importance of the voting and how much power that they actually influence. But a lot of people are just like, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't think they're educated enough to really understand that it truly does matter to them. And it will, in the ultimate scheme of things, affect them, either good or bad. And I think if something can be done to implement some more education on that, I think it would make a greater impact as well.
D-Love, D.
Yeah.
What you're saying is good stuff, but this is the only but. When you haven't been able to vote for so long and they've kept you out, you do feel like it doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, come again?
It's some really bad feedback.
When you haven't been able to vote for so long, and you've been cut out for so long, you don't feel like it matters. Because either you are just like me, who's just now being able to vote, being a grown adult after 22 years, or you can't vote. So you're not engaged. So like you said, we got to find a way to get the people that can't vote to become engaged with it.
Just to speak on what Rashad just said, I challenge and say there's a reason that they took your vote. If for them to take it, it had to be important. That's what I tell a lot of the people who tell me that that my vote doesn't count. Like everybody with the election, with Donald's election, it was funny to me that everybody kept crying about, well, we won the populist vote, as if how he actually got into office was something new. It's always been that way. So, right, educated on things, but like I said, I'm very blunt about things. So one of my first ways to combat that has always been people lost their lives for this right to vote. And if we're going to make it a white or black thing, there's a reason a white man killed you for wanting to vote. So don't ever think it doesn't matter.
Oh, here's a solution to the sound. If everybody mutes your phone until you're talking, we won't hear it. That probably will work.
I think that we have to stop also thinking that everybody is so educated about the voting process. I think that we have lost sight of something that the older generation did, and that was meeting people where they were. We're so ready to just say vote, vote, vote. But just like say for you, like what Antoinette said, she hasn't voted in 22 years. there's nothing wrong with bringing the voting boards into the functions that we have. I know that I have gone before the pandemic and everything really got going. I had attended 5 pageants this year. There was always somebody selling edibles. There was always somebody selling rhinestones. There was always somebody selling this, and somebody set up for a photo op. But what we did not have was someone set up with voter registration cards, or someone that was set up for, just having local candidates come in and talk. We are that community that they needed to talk to. So we have to start meeting people where they are and not just keep preaching vote, 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 because a lot of people, honestly, just may not know how. Yeah, it's easy as pushing a button, but what are the issues that they need to be concentrating on? And until we start meeting people where they are, we're still lost.
And to take that a little bit further, what you just said, Corey, in addition to the fact that, well, I've always criticized pageantry, and I did this week, and of course I got a lot of flack about it because pageantry people do not take the responsibility of the quote unquote leaders they claim to be. But to go a little bit further, I feel like we have proven as a community that when we mobilize, we can make something happen. That happened when we got all these young people and we dragged them to the polls and made them get the first Black president in office. So we know it can be done. The problem is we have a problem with follow through. We should have had that same enthusiasm when it was time to go for the local elections, when it was time to vote the House in and get our Congress assimilated, when it's time to get the council people and the aldermen in. We're choosing who these judges are going to be that are deciding whether or not people like Antoinette can vote. When we have those elections, every single time we have to show up. And if we only show up when we feel like it's big enough, then it will never be enough.
And also, too, Neaundre, a lot of times, and everybody keeps going back to this Obama days, we have to also take into consideration that we voted for Obama because he looked like us. So now we have to also teach them and make them understand that 44 other presidents have never looked like you. And you probably will never, I'm not going to say in my lifetime, I probably will never see another Obama, unfortunately. However, you still need to, we are tasked as the elders or the teachers is to teach them why they need to vote the way that they need to vote. Again, not trying to tell you you should vote for Joe Biden, but here's what the situation is going to be if you do vote for Joe Biden. Here's the situation when you have to get, again, we're going to go back to our pros and cons. So these Black kids, these young Black kids, they're not rushing out the vote because they don't identify with the people that are on the ticket. They just don't. Who identified with Trump? Who identified with Biden? They both old white men.
Well, if I can insert, though, many young people identify with Bernie Sanders, which is 78 years old. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's necessarily the age thing. I think it's about understanding, I think what Corey said, finding people where they are and moving forward from there. Because I don't think Bernie Sanders did anything youthful other than just do what Donald Trump did, and that's like feed off of anger, and it spoke to that body of people because they felt like they identified with him. But what I would also say is we have to make it consistent, which everyone is pretty much saying. We have to get people used to voting. That means get up and go vote for the board, the trustees at the local school district. Go vote for your judges in your city. I want the family to come get involved in the mayoral election, city council election. We have to make these things consistent. We can't do it just when it's the presidential race every 4 years because we're not getting them consistently placed in that position. So what I would say to D-Love is that it has to start with your inner circle, and then it breaks its way out. We have to start using our social medias more correctly and stop being so reckless with our social media. We have to stop spewing the hate for candidates and then turn around and say, now you have to vote for them. You know, like we have to be careful with that because we don't know who the candidate is going to be. So if you spend 6 months bashing the candidate that actually gets the nomination, you can't be surprised if this child is saying, why should I vote for him? He's horrible. Well, why you have to vote for him? Our ancestors fought. Well, you the one told me he was horrible. You know, so we have to be careful with those things. So I think it's consistency. I think that it's being persistent. And I think that it is education, but not educating them to the place that it becomes fear-mongering. Because you don't want to make them feel as though if you don't vote, you're going to go to hell. Or if you don't vote, you're not black. Because when you do those things and you're dealing with young minds, you deal with people who automatically go the opposite direction than what you are trying to guide them to. So you have to make it comfortable and ease it on them. Republicans take the whole family to go vote every time it's time to vote. Everybody getting up and we going to vote every single time. In the black family, we say, oh, we can't go vote because my boss ain't gonna let me out. Baby, you have a constitutional right to vote. But in our minds, we say, I don't have time to vote. I don't have. So if you're not really trying to get to the poll, then your family isn't trying to get to the poll. We have to use our platforms correctly.
So I'm sorry. Were you done? Okay. So I do want to chime in and say, I do feel that this conversation does start at home one way or the other, good and or bad. But at the same time, I think we keep saying young people. Young people turned up and turned out, not in the way that we thought they should or would have, but they did. But you have a lot of, and I keep bringing back the onus and the responsibility to my age group. You have a lot of us who feel like my vote ain't been heard. So you have to start helping people understand, even at this age, that your vote does matter. And you have to put it in a way that it's something tangible that they see. You want to know why your kids got education in schools like this and why Grady get everything over here? It's because you're not voting. You want to know why you got to go to Piedmont Park? It's because that's where you got to start laying out in your communities. Here's where your vote matters. And if you don't show up, you will continue to not have nothing. If you don't make it tangible for people and real for folks who already don't get it, and like you said, take the family, sit them down, and do yourself the favor. Print out your whole sheet so you know what's on the ballot for this season or whatever. But we have to do a better job, as everyone has said, with being consistent and making it tangible. Until you start making it tangible and people understand this is where my tax dollars are going, they decide where these dollars go. Then it's not going to matter for a great deal. And again, the one point I do want to drive home, we have to, while we acknowledge, respect, and uphold the past, we have to bring forth our duty going forward. And what is that? What is going to be the legacy that we leave? Because King left his legacy. There's so much more time in between that.
We have gone way over our time, which I think is kind of cool. But
and I wanted to say something.
Okay, well, go ahead and say it, baby. Go ahead and say it, baby.
Well, let me remind you guys that when you look at history, and it was statistically proven that this past election, young people came out and voted more than they ever had this past election. And so I think what's the problem is, like he was just stating, that they feel like they vote is not counted, because when you look at the election and you look at how Donald Trump cheated his way in, and then when you look at the local levels and when you look at the for governor and you see how Governor Kemp cheated his way in, I think people are getting frustrated and going out and coming out to vote, and then it's not mattering. It's, you know what I'm saying, their vote's not counting because they're cheating their way in. So I think that is the problem, why a lot of people are confused and a lot of people don't want to go to the polls, because they think that it's not going to matter whether they go or not.
Can I take 1 second? 30 seconds. Okay. To Deidre, we have to understand that when you're dealing with the electoral college, it's cheating in a sense, but if you win the popular vote of a state, then all of those electoral votes go to that candidate. So in a sense, it's not cheating, because if the numbers come out and it shows that 100,000 Black people stayed at home and 30,000 of that 100 was in Ohio, and the Democratic candidate lost by 20,000 votes, there lies the electoral count that went to that person. And it also means, like, when you have places like California, you can have more people than all over the world, but you're still going to get those 65 electoral votes. I don't care if every person vote for that, you're not going to get more than that 65. So that's where I think what D-Love was saying, and Marco definitely comes in the educational side of it, in understanding how electoral votes are actually broken up, because it's not cheating if you stayed at home. You cheated the rest of your fellow men and women if you decided not to go vote on that day. And remember, 2008 was still the largest we've ever seen between ages of 18 and 30. Still, that's still the #1 time that we've ever seen. The last election, 2016, it was 35 to 45 was the #1. So we have to remember that we have to educate people on those electoral votes, because it is cheating, but we cheat ourselves.
I literally was going to make the exact same point. I was just going to say that it's really not cheating, because you can look at the numbers and say, oh, we had this many votes, but that's just simply not the way the process works. It's not based on votes. It is based on those electoral votes. And then the very first thing you have to look at when you notice that you won the popular vote, but you did not win the electoral college votes, you have to look at how many people did not show up. We have to overwhelm them in order to secure a win. And if you have a certain amount of people who have given up and who feel like their vote doesn't count, if they don't show up to the polls, it's going to be, well, it has been a repeating cycle. It will never change, because the electoral college is the way it has always been done. That has not changed. It is a hard change. And if you ever wanted change, we will have to change what we're arguing about first. Those people have to show up to vote first to even get people in office who will entertain the idea of changing the electoral.
Amen.
Exactly. All you have to do is look at the landslide that Obama won by. Flipping those states that he flipped allowed them to have no choice but to put him in office. And that's what happens when it comes to the electoral college. If you don't flip those states, I don't care nothing about no popular vote. You're going to have to flip them. Ain't no if, and again, they have to be educated on that, because there's no other way for them to understand the magnanimity of getting out and voting, period.
And Antoinette is helping us win Florida.
Yes, indeed.
We got to get Florida, so that's going to help us get Florida.
And, it's a purple state, so it needs to be blue. It needs to be blue. And those
so y'all better be nice to me.
So this bitch holding her vote hostage. Okay.
You better get off your ass and go vote before you can't vote again.
Okay, so hold on. I did want to throw this out there, Dane. Y'all have inspired me, because y'all know I'm always for like trying to get something started. Because I feel like when you are a convicted felon, you become part of the forgotten, because you can't vote anyway, so you just got to go along to get along. So that I'm gonna see, because Diane Hart is a representative here in Florida, and we go to the same church, but she's always trying to get me to partner to do something. And there has to be a way to, maybe even if it starts with the youth, to educate them so that they don't get a criminal record, so that they can value their vote, or the people that can get their vote back. Maybe if you can educate them and let them know, hey, you qualify now to get your vote back. It got to be something I can do more besides just be happy to vote. So thank y'all for this, because tonight I actually gained more out of this than I think I contributed, and I'm very excited about the future for me and the ex-cons in Florida that can vote.
Antoinette, may I ask you a question, and I don't want it to sound patronizing.
Go ahead.
You're being reinstated to vote this year. Was there any process or education that was given to you as a felon that is actually going to help you along the process?
No. Well, I'm best friends with Neaundre. So he's kind of like, he's educated me a lot on the process, as far as looking at the full ticket, knowing the amendments and all the things that that you're voting on, not just the presidency. But as far as from the community at large, no, this is kind of like if you qualify and you did all your debts to society are paid and you're not on probation and you didn't, and you have a white collar crime, you can get your vote back. So drug dealers, check writers, former check writer, you can get your in Florida, you can vote. But if you are a child molester, murderer, you can't. So yes, to answer your question, no, there was nothing, and they don't even really want you to go. It's not being pushed. It's available, and they voted it in, but they're not saying, hey, don't forget, you can vote now. You just got to go down and register and make sure that you qualify. People don't really want to take the time because, again, the forgotten us, we haven't voted in so long that you just think you can't vote or you don't care to go vote because you feel like it's not enough.
See, the reason I asked that question is because I know that at the age of 18, when you gain your voting rights initially, you are fresh out of high school where you've just taken government econ. And so you've learned how government works and the processes that go along to actually to vote and to be able to make an informed decision. But then if you've been without the opportunity to vote for so long, you kind of forget what it is that you're actually voting for and how the processes work. And I just think that if they're reintroducing the ability for convicted felons to actually now be able to vote, that it should come with some kind of education.
So
I think that's something that our local leaders need to work on.
So I do want to just say something real quick. I'm sorry, Antoinette, but I do want to say that she made a really good point by saying they don't want us to, the vote changed that. So they're going to do everything to keep from educating and making sure that they know. So that's where, again, the local leaders, the churches, and everybody else, and people like Antoinette are going to have to be intentional with educating because they don't want us to be informed, especially at the numbers in which Florida is sitting at, because that's going to make a big difference for the state of Florida.
Yeah, Bakari Sellers, who actually made me want to go find out, when he said it was, I want to say the midterms in 2018, and he said it was a blue wave because that's when it actually took place. That remember in 2020, over 100,000 convicted felons in Florida can now vote, so that's going to change that state. That's what made myself and I think Amari like, oh yeah, we can go get our rights back once everything is done. So it needs to be reminded and been brought back up, I think, in this community, especially the LGBTQIA community, because we have many individuals that qualify in Florida that are convicted felons for check writing and fraud. That's the only thing you really have, but it's not so bad now because you at least can vote again, and that's something that you can value. So that's and we'll try to get with
that. That's what you gonna take up that charge and start organizing.
Absolutely, me and Neaundre. I volunteered Neaundre.
Hey, you know
everybody, y'all
help
have
you. Mulan can help you,
yourself. You have to unmute yourselves when you're ready to talk. Wendell had his hand up, so that was a mistake.
That was earlier.
Oh, okay, so you have to unmute like Deidre. So when you're ready to talk, you just have to unmute yourself and then go back to mute, because the background noise. Otherwise, we get the feedback. I'm going back to mute. On you, Damien.
All right. So, final thoughts. This is your moment to educate, inspire, or call to action our community. I want everybody to take that moment, and you have the spotlight. You out on stage. You have time to make a change. What are you going to say? Starting with Israel.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on something that I didn't get a chance to. About the riots or the protesting, and I know this is going to be off on a lot of people may not agree with how I'm saying this, but I think what I don't want to happen is for us to continue to march with the extra that's going on, that's being added and taken away from, and forget that there's other levels to this, and forget, especially with us being so close to an election, where we get so sidetracked that we don't focus on the people needing to be voting. It's not going to change anything if we keep marching forever and then all these people never make it to the polls. Just like Antoinette said, I lost my rights years ago, and I got them back probably about 10 years ago. And on my way out of prison, one of the old cats that we call had told me that, you can now get your rights back. And I immediately went back the next day and got them, and I haven't missed a vote since because I understood the importance of it. Like I said, I just don't want us to get so caught up on the fighting part of it that we forget that there are other parts of this for us to achieve what we want to achieve.
D-Love.
Agree with Izra. I also want to say, pay attention. I know we're angry, and I know
that's Dame who got the smoke detector.
No, that's not my smoke detector. Don't be at me.
Everybody's going through a lot of emotions and everything. But there are a lot of other things going on in the background that we are not paying attention to because we're upset. You have to be aware of everything. Keep yourself in the know on as much as you can, and take a little bit more patience, just like we've all been saying, in regard to making sure that the people around you that you may not know are educated. Reach out, try to expand yourself to someone, show them the value of what their vote can do, and try to make sure that when it comes time that we all get to the polls as much as possible to make a change. Pick people up if you have the wherewithal. Encourage people, go in groups, make it an event or whatever, but just try to do the most you can to try to make the most impact that you have.
And Deshaun?
D, I think I'm going to take that. This is getting ready to be a Facebook post. I actually am going to take some friends, try to create a group of people to do that. My thing is this, and everybody, if you don't go vote, I don't give a fuck. If you want to continue, because nothing is going to change unless we go vote. So even if I was having a conversation today about the electoral vote process. Even if we wanted that to go away, that could not go away without you voting. If it is not something that they bring up and you don't vote for it, it's never going to change anything. So that is my educational piece. So no matter what, we always are, no matter how many times we go around this merry-go-round, we're going to always end up in the same place. And that's just voting. I love y'all, all y'all. I'm going to mute myself.
Antoinette.
Okay. So first, I want to say thank you to Dame and this amazing panel that was assembled, however it came into play, because I know I was one of the last people to join it. I think this really helped me. And I hope that we can help somebody else by the things that we talked about. But 3 things that I took away from tonight, that if I had to just say it to the masses, educate yourself. Don't stop learning. I learned some things tonight that I didn't think I would learn, but I did. Don't give up. You too can reinvent your lifestyle, your life period. I didn't know that I'd be able to vote, and that is something that made me feel like I got a fresh start on life, on top of being, show directors and stuff like that. I'm talking about making a real difference, hopefully, my one little vote. And then do something. I had came into this conversation tonight with a mindset of, I just want to get out what I want to say, but I didn't have any proposed solutions. And tonight made me realize, you can do something too, and it's easy to post on Facebook, but it's even harder to get out there and actually be proactive. And that's what I'm learning and have learned, that we react often, but if we just take the time to do it in advance, we won't have to worry about reacting because it already be in play. So thank you again, Dane. And this was great for me and everybody else. Wendell, I like you. You're long-winded just like me, so we can get along real fine. And I hope he's not right behind me. You need to pick somebody else.
He's right behind you. Wendell, you have the floor.
Sorry, Wendell.
That's why I try not to speak much. Thank y'all for accepting my loquaciousness. But I always tell myself and I tell my students to always lead with respect, follow with responsibility. And that's the way I try and take on every new endeavor, every new person I meet. I try and always be respectful of the unknown. And then when I'm taught by that person how to treat them, I try and always follow with responsibility because now I have to know better. What I would admonish to each person on here is that I know Nikki, for one, she and I, we definitely kind of bump heads about the revolution without bumping heads, because we haven't bumped heads, but we definitely bumped heads, like, you know. But I think that what I would beg of you to understand is that you may not understand everything, you may not accept everything, you probably would not do everything. But one thing that I've been preaching since last Monday is that you will benefit from the revolution. So regardless to if you accept or understand it, just know that you will benefit from it. So with that being said, I don't think that it's appropriate to use your social medias to bash the revolution, because we spend a lot of time on what happened versus why it happened. And I think that we have to put more effort into why these things are happening so that we don't have to deal with what the outcome was. So when I tell people that it's not that's not worthy of a post, it's not saying that I think you should tear down people's houses or burn people's buildings, steal the police horses. I don't think any of that. But I don't think the Boston Tea Party should have went the way it went either, but look what came out of it. So I think that we just have to understand that everything is not meant for us to understand, but the outcome is what we should hopefully gravitate towards. So lead with respect, follow with responsibility. Anybody I've ever offended, I apologize in advance. And thank you for inviting me, Damien. I don't know how I got in the circle, but thank you.
Next, Deirdre. Deirdre, are you there?
No, she got kicked out. She's trying
to. Okay. Nikki, your turn, love.
Did I do it right? All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Dane, for this platform, and I enjoyed everybody's viewpoints. I've learned something from everybody on here. The one thing I definitely have learned that I will take from here is now knowing that it is preaching people and telling people to vote, educate them on how to vote and the reason why it's important to vote. So I thank you guys for that, and till next time.
Marcos?
So, Damien, first of all, thank you, or Dame. Yeah, I have to learn to do that. No, seriously, I want to thank you. And I want to thank the entire panel, because one of the things that I'm going to challenge everyone on this panel, especially with your social media posts, within your circles, wherever you are, if you are not surrounded by people who allow and push you to listen to different trains of thoughts and respect different trains. It's not saying you have to agree, but I think one of the things that we are really suffering from right now is our ability to have healthy debate and intelligent discourse. I really, really want to push us to do that within your circle, hold our circle accountable so that people can do that more often. The other thing I want to say, final thoughts, and I have a couple, but final thoughts. Know that your Black dollar matters and where you put your Black dollar.
Yeah, thank you.
We talk about all these things. We talk about the vote because the vote matters, but your dollar matters. Wherever you live, find out where your businesses are. Find out where you can support a Black business or a brown business, because it matters. Trust me, you start changing that dollar, you'll see a lot of things changing.
Yeah.
And really, really educate folks on that. The other thing, and the very last thing, as we talk about voting, know the importance of this particular election. When you have a Betsy DuVal's, when you have potentially 2 Supreme Court justices getting ready to retire, if not die out, and I'm not wishing nobody death, but understand the importance of this election and what this man will get to choose if he is reelected again. So those are my final thoughts. I really do appreciate this, and hopefully we can do it again. Oh, and stay consistent. I put it on my page the other day. Do not let your protests be temporary. That's what we suffer from the most right now. We start, we get happy, we be mad for 2 weeks, and then we shut up until the next person is dead. Please don't wait until I die to protest again.
Amen. Deirdre, since you're back, final thoughts. If you had the ability to have the platform and you are educating, inspiring, or you have a word to say to the people, what would it be?
Well, first of all, Damien, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me into this platform so that I can be a part of sharing what I'm most passionate about. For me, I think if we want to invoke real change, I think we can't choose between politics and protesting. I think we have to choose them both. And in a way where we are mobilizing and organizing, where we are meeting people where they are and also educating people, because a lot of people are not educated on who's the candidates are. And so I think we need to do our due diligence is to stay on Facebook, whether we're putting like the candidates on Facebook and telling people like what they stand for, what their platform is, so people can know who to vote for and where their vote will count and their vote can be, and their voice can be heard, and we can get the right people in office so that real change can come about.
Thank you. Corey?
As has been expressed from everyone, I do want to take the opportunity to thank you for this opportunity. The thoughts that I want to leave everybody with are basically, we may not always agree by the manner in which someone expresses their experience, but it is still our responsibility to respect it. The things that we do locally affect us nationally, and that it's not, although voting is important, there are other things that we also need to concentrate on, like completing a census form. I don't think that I've heard the census forms mentioned at all at any time during our conversation on today, but it's also an important part of the political aspect. And then lastly, stop judging someone's protest. If we stand and have a voice about anything, it's not up to other people to say that your voice is coming in the wrong way. I think that it is very important that when your feet are not able to march and your voice is not able to actually be present for whatever the ordeal is, that you still use the platform that you have in order to ensure that there is at least a voice coming from you. Other than that, get out and vote, and thank you.
And before I give my final thought, I'm going to take it over and say thank you to the actual person who, I think in that same day, we actually had the same thought of having a panel discussion. As soon as I thought it, Neaundre had actually placed it, and I immediately hit him up. So Neaundre, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dame. Yeah, I actually, that's the first thing I wanted to do was to thank you, because it was and originally my post, I posted it, but knowing that in the coming days over this weekend and stuff, knowing that I had responsibilities that I had to deal with work, and I wouldn't be able to put it together and communicate with people, I allowed you to just go ahead and take it over, and you did an awesome job with selecting the panel. Remember, we talked about having people who would have something with some meat to it to say, and I think you chose amazing people who have all different perspectives, and so thank you so much for that. For the panel, I just want to let you guys know that I created an event that is called Vote Trump Out on Facebook. It is a public event for the entire world to be able to, it's basically just encouraging people to vote. Everyone on this panel has either already accepted the invite or you've been sent the invite. So please check for that, and please share that event. Since Antoinette said, what are we gonna do? Since I'm in Vegas, I live in Nevada now, I'm a citizen here, I'm very engaged with the local leaders here, as well as, because, you know, we caucus here. We don't have, you know, the regular primaries, which was a very different experience for me. But since I'm here and this state is comfortably blue, I feel like it's gonna go to Biden with no issues here, as usual. I'm going to vote early, and I'm going to leave and go to another state, likely Florida, to try to assist people. I've decided to rent a 15-passenger van, set up some groups where I can go and get people and take them back. I'm soliciting help from class of 1998, 99, 2000, everybody I have ties with back at home to get some bottled water, some sandwiches, chips, and stuff like that, so I can really try to make an impact in the state that I'm from. So that's the charge for myself. For those who are watching, my charge to you is to be scrupulous in digesting the information that you're getting on the internet. Because for me, it's generally confusing to me as why the talk about this entire movement that's taking place right now, that the thought process is that the responsibilities to fix oppression on the Black community lies on the Black community. It's not our fight. Our fight is to call out the white people who allow systemic racism that exists, and it creates the oppression. I feel like our job is to hold them accountable, but more so to hold ourselves and one another accountable for holding them accountable. I'll say that again. Our job is to hold them accountable, but more so to hold ourselves and each other accountable for holding them accountable. Be vigilant.